So as we continue the Idaho State Police documents that have been released, we have more questions. And yes, Jack DeCour was of note and of concern to the officers. Yes, Jack Showalter was awfully suspicious. Yes, there was a lot of interest in who Kaylee was seeing and who she might be sleeping with. Yes, there was interested in why Kaylee had a bunch of money. Yes, there was a whole bunch of alternate suspects that were clearly under investigation. And yes, there was the ever-changing story of Dylan Mortensen. And yet, when Brian Kohberger's name gets given by the federal investigators in the case, then that becomes it, and all of this other shit goes away. Let's talk about what the documents are revealing and repiece what happened that night at the Corner Club. Now, some of what we're going to do today is we're just going to go through more of those documents in the Idaho 4 release from the Idaho State Police. And this was about a 556-page document that's been released of various police reports, heavily redacted. It's a little dry for a lot of people. However, some of you say that when I do it, it's not so dry. So let's hope that I can punch a little bit of humor into it, even though it is entirely not a laughing matter. And I get that. So we're going to get to know some of the names, and we're going to keep going through some of these documents. And I only want to cover about an hour at a time on this. So we're going to try to cut that short when we get around that time. But let's focus on a repeating pattern of things that happened that night. Because again, what I want you to focus on is the consistencies in the story and the alternative suspects. Alternative suspects, again, that Stephen Hippler in the case indicated that there was nothing to see there. These alternative suspects are complete hogwash because we know the killer arrived in a car. So it couldn't have been all of these people who live within walking distance of the house and did weird shit that night and have weird stories and weird connections. All of that, according to Hippler, is complete nonsense, and we will not tolerate it because we know the killer arrived from Pullman. The federal government told us so. The FBI told us it was Kohberger. So that's all we're going to look at, because all these other people don't make any more sense than the incel who couldn't get laid theory. So let's break down what happened that night and talk about it from my perspective, which is a little different than everybody else sometimes. All right, David Cortez. This is a report from David Cortez. This is about an interview on November 18th, 2022. The Idaho State Police investigators, David Cortez and Detective Chris Pohonka, interviewed some individual regarding the homicides of Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, and so on. This individual happens to be a white male of the age of about 22 years old. You can see on screen there. On November 18th at approximately 11:55 a.m., Idaho State Police Detective Chris Pohonka and myself, I interviewed this person. The interview took place at such and such's residence at such and such a place in Buell, Idaho. And so this is what we got to say. He has known Kaylee since freshman year. They were in the same pledge class. So they've hung out together periodically over the last 4 years. He has visited the house in Coeur d'Alene once. So he's been to, I think, Kaylee's house in Coeur d'Alene. Kaylee and this is a person I believe is Jack DeCour. Kaylee and Jack DeCour had been dating since high school. They were on and off again and broken up twice. They had recently broken up because she accepted a job in Dallas. So they were settling things before she left after the semester. They broke up about 2 months ago. This ongoing narrative of the breakup, many people will list Jack DeCour and Kaylee's relationship as amicable. It continued to be good. Now, almost everyone will say how sweet and amazing Jack DeCour is. And that's one of the things that is consistent with everyone. Jack's just a really nice guy. Most people will say the relationship was good even after the breakup. However, you will find as the documents go on, several people indicated Jack wasn't doing so well after all. There was indications in the Moscow Police Department records that Jack DeCour was having mental health issues with the breakup. Others said he wasn't taking it all that well. But most people on the outside superficially believe that Jack was handling it well. So keep that in mind. When we go through these documents, you're going to hear a lot of people saying, hey, things were fine with Jack and Kaylee. But there was others who said things were not so fine with Jack and Kaylee. And so again, just keep all of that in the back of your mind, even when you see all these documents saying, oh, things were fine between Jack and Kaylee. And again, I'm not saying that Jack is the primary suspect here. I want you to make sure you understand that. But what I have said many times is whatever happened that night at the 1122 King Road residence, a lot of that had to do with what happened at the Corner Club that night. So let's pay attention very specifically to what happened at the Corner Club that night. All right. So, again, Kaylee had taken a job in Dallas. She was going to be leaving her boyfriend. She was no longer staying at the house at 112 King Road residence. In fact, she was asked to come back that weekend that she died. She had not been staying there for like 3 weeks. She showed up that weekend and was murdered that weekend. So the one has to ask, was Kaylee lured back to the house? Well, let's again refresh who brought Kaylee back to the house. Dylan Mortensen asked Kaylee to come back to the house and attend a party with her, a sorority party, I think it was. Wanted her to be her +1 at a certain thing. That's why Kaylee came back. That and to show off a new car she had. That money issue, the new car, where Kaylee got that money and the massive amounts of money that she was spending around that time are also a subject of this investigation. So pay attention to all of that. Now, he had heard, this person who's being interviewed had heard that there was some kind of incident in the past where someone was following Kaylee at a Winco a couple of months ago. He heard from friends. That story comes up all the time. Everyone in Kaylee's friend circle has heard the story about Kaylee being followed by somebody at Winco. She was being stalked. Many people indicate Kaylee was being stalked. Officers in both Moscow PD and Idaho are focused on Kaylee because, again, early in this investigation, despite the shit that they told you later, early in this investigation, they believed it was a targeted homicide. They believed Kaylee Gonzalez was the target. Their focus was on Kaylee. Who was Kaylee sleeping with? How was her relationship with Jack? Who was she last seen with? What is this stalker that Kaylee has? Kaylee. Everything's about Kaylee. She was what I believe early investigators believed was the target of the house when they told everybody this was a targeted event. They know somebody in the house was targeted, and it was Kaylee. At some point, and for some reason, the narrative shifted, and they didn't want us talking about Kaylee at all. And I say they because there seemed to be a collective move in the media to have us not talk about Kaylee anymore. So then you started throwing out names. Oh, Xana was the target. No, Maddie was really the target. Oh, this incel became obsessed with Maddie, who there's no proof he ever saw her or met her. But we're going to make up an imaginary story that maybe one day Brian Koberger might have seen Maddie at the Mad Greek restaurant and became obsessed with her and needed to have her, and Kaylee was just an accident. Somebody in this fucking story shifted the narrative away from Kaylee. Kaylee was always the focus. The early investigation should tell you everything about this, that the investigation was always focused on Kaylee being the target. And somewhere along the line, about the same time they decided to shift the narrative to Brian Koberger, they moved the narrative away from Kaylee as the target, and it became about Maddie. Oh, Maddie, because they thought they had a connection between Brian Koberger and Maddie, because Brian Koberger supposedly had an Instagram account in which he thumbs up a picture of Maddie. And so when they came up with the name Brian Koberger, this is all my opinion, all my speculation. Again, everything I say here is a speculative thing. It's for entertainment purposes only. Don't take any shit that I say seriously. I'm just a freaking nerd reading the documents and trying to show you what I see. Who cares a shit what I say? The point being is that at some point when they decided that Koberger was their guy and the federal government told the Moscow Police Department, the guy you should be looking at, wink, wink, nod, nod, is Brian Koberger, they shifted everything and they changed who the target was from Kaylee to being Maddie because they thought there was going to be a stronger connection. They tried really hard to make the connection between Brian Koberger and Maddie, but they couldn't do it. That's something they basically said at the sentencing. You know, we tried really hard to make the connection between Koberger and any of the girls in the house, and we couldn't do it. Well, that's because maybe there wasn't one. Maybe the original investigation on Kaylee was where you should have spent your time, but somebody shifted the narrative. That's my opinion. And I know that's a long rant, but let's get back to it. So he heard the story from somebody, basically a sorority sister of Kaylee's. So-and-so is in California now, and her phone number is whatever. So he heard this story about the stalker from Winco from somebody else, and he gave them their phone number, the officers. He works at such and such a place in Moscow. So he saw Kaylee, Maddie, and I want to say that's Jack DeCoeur, leave together that night. Now, actually, that could be Jack Showalter. We know Kaylee and Maddie left with Jack Showalter, but we also know Jack DeCoeur was at the bar that night as well. I think that this would probably have to be in this redaction hell that we're at, that we know Kaylee, Maddie, and Jack Showalter left together that night. That was the last time he saw them. They said they were going to John's Alley. Now, this is super interesting to me. I never heard this before until I started deep diving into these documents again. Many references of people say Kaylee and Maddie were heading to John's Alley. They were not done partying for the night when they left the corner club. They were heading to John's Alley. Jack Showalter was apparently going to John's Alley with them. A lot of people in this investigation will say how weird it is that Jack Showalter was involved because he was a creepy guy who was known for violence and wasn't particularly friendly with the girls. So they all wanted to know why it is Jack DeCoeur was hanging out with the girls and going to go with them to another bar afterwards. Now, that didn't happen. The girls, for some reason, didn't. Well, actually, let me clarify that. At some point point in one of these documents that we're going to read, someone says they did make it to John's Alley and then went to the grub truck. Somebody else says they never made it to John's Alley. They went to the grub truck instead. So what exactly happened between Corner Club, John's Alley, and which is another bar location, and the grub truck? We don't know exactly, because there's some confusion in the documents from what I see. And that's, and I could be wrong. Maybe you guys caught something. You can correct me in the notes. Feel free to correct me. By the way, I have no problem with you guys correcting me when I say something wrong. No devil's advocates. That was not Jack Showalter. That was Jack DeCour here, or that was, whatever the case may be. Feel free to correct me. I want to get this shit right. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go back and recut the video, so your comments are going to help when people read through that where DA got it wrong. All right, going back to our documents. So they said they were going to John's Alley and were going to get home or get some friends to go with them, and they didn't end up going there. So this guy is saying, look, they were going to go to John's Alley together as a group. They wanted to get other people to go with them to John's Alley after the Corner Club, but they ended up not going there, and he didn't know where they were before they showed up at some place. Skipping down a little bit, we see that this person said wouldn't have harmed Kaylee. Somebody wouldn't have harmed Kaylee. He loves her and thought they would be married. That is Jack DeCour we're talking about. I almost 100% guarantee you. Jack DeCour, this person who knows Jack and Kaylee, is saying DeCour wouldn't have harmed Kaylee. Why is he mentioning that? Probably because the officers keep questioning who wanted Kaylee dead. Why? What about this ex-boyfriend? Kaylee is the focus in the investigation. Make no fucking bones about it. Kaylee is the investigation's focus at this point. It is the person they think was targeted in the house. And I will just say that's my opinion 100%. They all thought Kaylee was it. Everything they ask is a million questions about Kaylee. And they want to know what the ex-boyfriend, the guy who's jilted from Kaylee. But this person says, as many people will say, DeCour wouldn't have harmed Kaylee. He loves her and thought that they would be married. By the way, there's some of your motivation. Jack DeCour thought that Kaylee was the love of his life and that they were always going to spend the rest of their life together. That she decided to break it off with him. And yes, it was her decision. And yes, that's repeated by multiple people. And yes, she was moving in with a guy in Dallas. And yes, she was taking their dog with them. All of those things were true. You all want to say, those who hold to the traditional narrative, that things were just perfectly hunky-dory with Jack with all that. His lifelong love, the woman that he thought he was going to marry, the woman he thought he would spend the rest of his life with, he was totally okay with the fact that she was sleeping around with multiple guys recently and was moving in with a guy in Texas and taking their dog. Everything was fucking cool with Jack. He was okay with it. I don't buy it. But you guys want to, and a lot of people have said, oh yeah, he was cool with it. But some people said, no, he wasn't cool. And I'm going to stick with, no, he wasn't cool. I don't think he was cool with it. But anyways, does that make him a murderer? No. It makes him a guy who's losing the love of his life and the woman he thought he was going to marry. That doesn't necessarily mean murder, but it certainly could. Now, listen. Jack DeCour, he's a calm and kind person. They've had a great relationship when even when they're not together. This person says they have a great relationship even when they're not together. He's calm and a kind person. He's into sports, not an outdoorsman. That comment gets made a lot about Jack DeCour. He's not an outdoorsman. Why is that important? Because somebody who used a K-bar knife to kill all these people, they're suggesting that person was into hunting and skinning animals. Things like a Jack Showalter might be accused of doing. And so they keep pointing out, well, you know what? Jack DeCour, her ex-boyfriend, wasn't really a hunter kind of guy. He's not a knife-carrying guy. He's just a nice guy who likes sports, and they got along pretty well. A lot of people are trying to cover for Jack, trying to give character sketches of Jack DeCour as just a really nice guy who probably is not the kind of guy who even hunts and could harm an animal. He's just a nice guy. He doesn't have a knife. That was stated in here. He's never heard this person, DeCour, even say anything bad about Kaylee. Now, that is not necessarily consistent with things that I've heard, where Jack DeCour supposedly went on social media and said some very nasty things about Kaylee. And I think that there's a reason why Kaylee wasn't staying there on top of just the COVID situation and other things. She might have been afraid a little bit of Jack DeCour when she broke up with him and finished that whole relationship. And there's that factor. Now, I can't prove that, but I've seen it in other documents. We don't have time to cover it all right now. Geez, am I going to move on to the fucking point? We've got like 20 more pages to cover. All right, let's go. There's an apartment complex behind the victim's house that has a lot of sketchy people in it, this person says. There are registered sex offenders living in it. That place is behind such and such apartments. There were windows facing the girl's house, and it's adjacent to it. It's a brown brick apartment complex. So this person just happens to mention, by the way, did you know there's registered sex offenders who have a house that looks down on the girl's house, and somebody could peep on the girls from above and get interested / obsessed with the girls? But that's okay. It makes no sense. honestly an incel from Pullman who drives over across the borders to commit murder in a state where there's capital punishment from a state that didn't have capital punishment. That makes more sense. And take your personal cell phone with you. But again, I'm beating a dead horse. Brian Kohberger did confess to the crimes. So why am I still bringing it up? Because it doesn't make as much fucking sense as all these other things. It still doesn't make as much sense as all these other things. But okay, that's the story. Kohberger fell on his sword, and I have a reason. I have a reason, a new theory that I've been coming up with. If you watched my member-only content on the darkest theory you're going to hear, there's a reason why Kohberger may have actually done it for somebody in that house, and I cover that in some details. Now, we're going to get into another report. This is Christopher Pohonka, their report on November 18th. With David Cortez and so-and-so interviewing a place at Buell, Twin Falls County in Idaho. This individual, this witness, is a white female of 21 years old. On November 18th at approximately 12:28, Idaho State Police Detective Sergeant David Cortez and I, Chris Pohonka, interviewed so-and-so. The interview took place in Buell, Twin Falls County. I asked how she knew the victims in Moscow, and she explained how Kaylee Gonzalez, the victim, belonged to the such and such sorority. Gonzalez resigned from the sorority, and this person and Gonzalez still remain friends. Maddie was one of Gonzalez's best friends. So that's some history with them. So-and-so this person is still in the sorority, but does not live at the sorority house. This person lives in a house which overlooks the backyard of Gonzalez. This person describes how her room looks directly to the sliding door of the Gonzalez house. So whoever we're being interviewed literally has an eyeballs view into the girl's house and the sliding glass door that the killer allegedly entered in through. All of this is interesting and important to go through. This is the detective, I asked this person we're interviewing if she was around the victims the night of the homicide. This person was familiar with her friends, so-and-so and so-and-so, and began their night at John's Alley. So this person's at John's Alley to begin the night. She took a phone call from Gonzalez. So Kaylee calls her to come down to the corner club. We know from an earlier report that Kaylee calls somebody, come down to the corner club. Is this the person? Does this match all this together? So this person who's out partying and knows the girls and lives behind the house is called by Kaylee from the corner club to come join them. This person and her friends went to the club per Kaylee's request, it looks like. This friends slowly left from there and went back to their houses. Gonzalez and Mogan were still at the club with so-and-so. Gonzalez and so-and-so were planning on going to John's Alley to continue the evening. So Kaylee calls her friend who started at John's Alley to come to the corner club. They hang out for a while, and then they're going to return to John's Alley. That was the plan that I see so far. Got it? Kaylee's calling a friend from John's Alley that she joins them at the corner club. They're all going to return to John's Alley, but that never happens. The girls end up diverting to the grub truck and are never seen again after they leave the grub truck. Well, never seen by anybody, eyewitnesses. Well, except for Dylan Mortensen. Okay, you got the story, I think. Let's keep going. Gonzalez and Mogan were still at the club when so-and-so, Gonzalez and so-and-so were planning on going to John's Alley to continue the evening. So-and-so was talking to another friend and noticed Gonzalez and Mogan had left. This person then went to the grub truck, Grub Wandering Kitchen, no set location, and believed that she was about a half hour behind Gonzalez and Mogan at the truck. Even so-and-so had even left had the same Lyft driver as Gonzalez and Mogan. So now here's what I think is meaning. This girl who was called to join them at the corner club, they were going to return to John's Alley, but for some reason, Kaylee and Maddie and I think Jack Showalter all left. And about a half hour after they had left, the friend that got called from John's Alley, realizes they're all gone and starts to go after them a half hour behind. Follow the logic so far. Not super important, but we're trying to recreate what happened that night. Because again, I think everything happened that night that happened was related in some way to the corner club. Now, Sergeant Cortez asked if they had any further contact with the girls, and she didn't. She and somebody fell asleep in such and such's room. She went to such and such room for the night. She thought she remembered hearing music, but was not sure. She would have been able to hear if they were having a party. Okay. So again, there's a point in this narrative where Dylan says that Kaylee was playing music around 4 a.m. This person thought she remembered hearing music, but wasn't sure. So-and-so got a video from her friend. This person, I think that we're being interviewed, got a video from her friend, so-and-so, of so-and-so on her bed snoring. So-and-so tried to listen to the video to see if she could hear anything in the background, but she couldn't. What does that tell me? It makes me think somebody inside of the house at, oops, did I just freaking highlight stuff? I think I did. This is what tells me. I think somebody inside the house at 1122 King Road residence sent a video to this person of somebody in her bed sleeping or snoring. And now that this person who's being interviewed knows that murders happened that night, she's trying to listen to that video she got that night to see if she hears anything going on in the house. That's what I'm imagining is happening here. And if so, it just leads to that question. Why are we, anybody in that house, sending videos of people sleeping in the house? What does that fucking mean even? Am I wrong about this? Is that what just happened? That this person being interviewed said she got a video from somebody who was inside the house of somebody snoring in their bed, and now she's trying to listen to what's going on in the background because why? Why would she do that? Because there was murders that happened, and she's saying, did I hear anything in that fucking video that I can share with you? That's my thought process. Now, Sergeant Cortez asked if she was aware of them, of where they were before the Corner Club. She thought they might have come from their house. Thursday night, Gonsalves wanted them to go out. Saturday night, everyone was out. She said the girls usually like getting ready together. Sergeant Cortez asked if she knew where they were Friday, and this person said they knew Thursday night was a sleepover at such and such's house. Gonsalves was not able to attend since she had resigned from the sorority. She thought Gonsalves was in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and she told her to come back. She thought Gonsalves came back Friday and showed people her car. She did not believe they did anything Friday night. Why is this all important? Kaylee Gonsalves was staying in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. She hadn't been staying at the 1122 King Road residence for a while, weeks at least. Dylan asked her to come back in town for a party, and Kaylee decided that it would be a good time to also show off her brand new car that she just got. Not brand new as in bought brand new off of a lot, but brand new to Kaylee. But still an expensive car that makes everybody wonder where Kaylee suddenly got this money. That's another part of the narrative. So keep in mind, some people will tell you in the narrative that Kaylee came back into town not to hang out with Dylan, but to show off her car. Other people will tell you Dylan asked Kaylee to come back into town, which is also true. So it's a combo, perhaps. Kaylee got a new car. Dylan invites her to come back into town. Hey, let's hang out for your last weekend of living. And so Kaylee's like, sure, that sounds good. I'll also show off my brand new car. Things can get complex. Now, Sergeant Cortez asked is Gonsalves ever mentioning anything about a stalker? Because again, these guys are constantly focused on Kaylee and her stalker and her relationships with men and her relationship with her ex-boyfriend. That is the focus of this investigation by both Moscow Police and Idaho State Police. She described Gonsalves as a person who would just joke things off. She believed there could have been a time when she mentioned something, but she wasn't sure. Sergeant Cortez asked if Gonsalves said anything once her and so-and-so broke up, if he would want to hurt her. Now we're talking about Jack DeCour again, I believe. So he's saying, what about her ex-boyfriend? Did you hear her say anything about her ex-boyfriend, Jack, after they broke up? Would he want to hurt her? Gonsalves described this person, Jack, to her as her child. Jack was, to Kaylee, a child. Poor Jack. Was Jack just a little boy in a world full of men after Kaylee Gonsalves? Was he just a child in her eyes? She's ready to move on to bigger, better things. Maybe I'm interpreting that wrong. But to Kaylee, Gonsalves described Jack to her, this friend being interviewed, as her child and was not a serious guy. She didn't take Jack DeCour seriously. Well, fuck, I think Jack DeCour took you seriously, Kaylee. That's what I think. I think Jack DeCour took you seriously. I think he thought he was going to marry you. I think he thought you were going to be the mother of his children. I thought he was going to fucking raise that dog with you and you were going to live together and happily ever after. But you think he's a fucking child and you're moving on and sleeping with other guys and moving in with other guys. And everybody thinks that Jack is okay with this. Maybe. Or maybe I'm not buying it. Either so, doesn't mean Jack DeCour is the murderer, but holy shit, is there not more motive there? Now, Jack was in such and such fraternity, and they all hung out together since he lived next door. Jack DeCour lived right next door. Well, we know Jack DeCour can't be involved in the murders because the murderer arrived in a car. So thanks to Stephen Hippler, that's a good alibi for Jack DeCour. Well, I know he was within walking distance to the house, and he knows the girls, and he's upset that his girlfriend is moving on and sleeping with other guys and moving in with other guys and all those things. But that is not a fucking motive because the killer arrived in a car. Whew. All right. She described Gonsalves and Jack as a brother and sister relationship. Aw, isn't that sweet? Do I think Jack bought the brother-sister thing? Fuck no. By the way, For those of you who don't understand men, if you've got a woman that you're obsessed with and she's leaving you, sometimes the smart play for you is to be the understanding guy who hangs around and supports her until she decides that she wants to get back together with you. If you play the asshole card, if you play the jealous card, you may lose her forever. Sometimes you got to let her go to get her back. Was Jack staying friendly around Kaylee because there was hopes that if he played the nice guy thing, showing that he just still cared about her, and that was what was more important, that he'd win her back? Does that mean that Jack isn't fomenting in his heart absolute anger, frustration, and horror when she's being with other men, trying to pretend like he's cool with it because he's just the good guy who stands by her side and will be there when she's done spreading her oats? I don't know. Maybe I fucking watched too many fucking, I don't know, daytime soap operas. I don't know what the fuck. That seems like a soap opera thing. Anyways, let's move on. They shared the dog Murphy. Sergeant Cortez asked her if she thought that Jack would do anything to hurt her, and she believed that he would never do anything to hurt her. Jack was described as a city guy, and he did not think that he did a lot of outdoors. He was from Coeur d'Alene area and grew up with his sisters. Why do they keep mentioning he's not an outdoors guy? Because they keep asking about the knife. They know the person who killed Kaylee had a knife. And so does he have a knife? Is he a hunter? Does he like to kill animals? No, everybody keeps saying Jack didn't even like outdoor stuff. He wasn't a fucking hunter. You got the wrong guy. Look for somebody like Jack Showalter who likes to kill animals. That would be somebody more interesting. Anyways, that's the circle. That's the story you're going to hear from a lot of people. Now, Sergeant Cortez asked this person if she knew anyone that might have wanted to hurt them in this circle of friends. And she said the circle is interesting. And that's where it kind of stumps everyone, because this group of people, you'd probably never have been friends if it wasn't for the housing situation. So the friends weren't really friends because they all necessarily liked each other. They were friends because they shared a house together. This is important in the Dylan narrative, when some people say Dylan didn't even really like Kaylee. Oh, but Dylan asked Kaylee to come back, and there was that nice picture of them all hanging out and smiling together. But according to this person, they were all kind of a weird relationship because they were only really friends because of the housing situation. Did they really have as strong as a bond as it looked, or was it the house that held them together? All of the roommates would meet each other and have friends hang out with friends. Sergeant Cortez asked her if she heard anything the night of the homicide, and she normally would. They were referred to as a party house and would normally hang out in the backyard and play loud music. The night of the homicide, everyone had gone elsewhere to hang out. The sliding back door was considered the front door to the people who would visit. The sliding glass door was considered the main entrance to the house, even though it's not on the quote unquote front side of the house or the front door. It is on the second floor, which the ground rises up at the back. It has a walkway out there. So the second floor kind of meets the ground at a sloping hill on the outside. That was considered the front door. A lot of people came and went through that sliding glass door where the killer came in through. No big super surprise that the killer came in through the sliding glass door. That was like the front door of the house. Understand that. That door was open a lot. Understand that. However, Dylan's role oftentimes was to lock that door. Understand that as well. And it wasn't locked that night. Understand that as well. Now, I don't want to fucking make any speculations. Just understand that as well. Now, okay, let's go on. So, again, the sliding back door was considered the front door for people that would visit. She didn't know if the back door was locked or unlocked. This person talked about how the kitchen area and living area was the main place for them to hang out. The door was usually open for people. That kitchen / living room area to talk about is on the second floor, I think, not the first floor, where Bethany Funk's room is, and an empty room that used to be some other member's house or bedroom. I think that used to be Ashlyn Couch's room, but she had moved out, and it had been serving as an office for Kaylee. Kaylee worked out of the home sometimes at the house and worked in the basement in this office space in the basement. There was 2 bedrooms on that ground floor, one of which was Kaylee's alternate workplace / office, which was a former bedroom of Ashlyn Couch, I believe. This is how I understand it. And Bethany had a room on the bottom floor, the first floor, which kind of technically was the main floor of the front of the house, but not the main floor of the second level out the back. Are you following this? Most of you know this, but I'm trying to narrative this thing through you for those who don't know. All right, let's continue. She did not know, this person being interviewed, of any large knives in the house. Makes me think that the officer suspected the killer could have used a knife in the house itself, not brought a knife to the scene. Well, that's interesting because the killer left a knife sheath behind. But anyways, we'll do this. Sergeant Cortez asked her if she knew anyone that Gonzalez was romantically involved with after Jack DeCoeur. I think after so-and-so, named so-and-so, who were both such and such. So I don't know what that all is. It's heavily redacted. It sounds to me like the officers want to know if Kaylee was romantically, not sexually necessarily, romantically, or are they just combining when they say romantically, they really mean sexually. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, they want to know who Kaylee is hooking up with after Jack. And it looks like a couple of individuals were named. A couple of other males were named who were both something. Too short for F buddies. So we're going to friends with benefits, FWBs. That makes me think that what that is, but I could be completely jumping this. By the way, Kaylee Gonzalez seems to have a lot of male friends. I'm not trying to slut shame Kaylee, so stop that shit. I'm trying to explain the narrative. We have to understand. That's what the fucking officers are doing in this case, pardon my French, is they're trying to find out who all Kaylee was seeing and sleeping with and whatever, because she is the focus of this investigation, in my opinion. Now, she did not have any contact with information for these other guys. She did not believe any of the males mentioned would have anything to do with her homicide. So this person is listing multiple males who have relationships, romantic or otherwise, with Kaylee Gonzalez. She has a lot of guys in her life, in my opinion. Not slut shaming. That's not what I'm doing. You have to follow the narrative. There's a lot of guys involved with Kaylee's life, and the cops are trying to sort out which one of all of these guys may have been obsessed with Kaylee, because that's what looks like happened. Kaylee was mutilated worse than anyone in the house. It was a crime of passion. They thought it was targeted against Kaylee. Do not get that shit out of your head when you try to shift the narrative to Brian Koberger was obsessed with Maddie, some chick he saw once at a Greek Mad restaurant, and went there to rape her, but then Kaylee interrupted him and it pissed him off. That's the narrative that got shifted when somebody in this case didn't want you to remember and think that Kaylee was still the focus of this investigation. That's my gut. I told her if she can think of anyone else to assist in the investigation to call. She mentioned how she would hear the dog Murphy. So they're wrapping up. Hey, if you find anything else, let us know. Oh, by the way, the dog Murphy, she mentions, she would hear a dog Murphy barking, and she never heard him bark that night. So-and-so had the television on and thought she had gone to bed around 3:30 in the morning. She would be able to hear anything going on in that house since the windows were really big. Sergeant Cortez asked if the other roommates would have had anyone who would want to hurt them. She thought everyone in the house was amazing people. Gonzalez's boyfriend, so-and-so was in Boise. Is that Jack DeCoeur? I think so. Jack DeCoeur. The redaction makes me wonder about the DeCoeur, but I think what they're saying is Jack DeCoeur is back in Boise following the murders at the point that they're doing this interview with this person. She spoke very highly of him. Kernodle and Chapin were in a newer relationship. Everybody speaks highly of Jack DeCoeur. That is a common theme. So-and-so and her friends created Instagram accounts. Listen to this. So-and-so and her friends created Instagram accounts and have their profiles private. Lately, they've been getting a lot of traffic. She added that people can make fake profiles and would be an easy way to stalk people. She mentioned a profile that had a pretty girl as the profile picture. The profile had been around for a long time. The name on the profile was such and such, such and such. She did not know if the profile was real or fake. So, the reason why this is important is we're going to find that a lot of people were texting girls on Instagram with brand new created accounts saying, "You're next. I'm going to kill you next. I'm not done killing." There was that kind of shit going on. Is it just trolls getting their jollies off of I want to scare little girls and I had nothing to do with it, but isn't this going to be funny to create an account? Was it the killer creating accounts going, by the way, you're next. I'm coming for you next. How much was followed up on? I don't know. Now, we're way behind schedule, so let's keep going on this document. This is a new investigation. James Miller and Millar. On November 18th, 2022, Idaho State detectives interviewed somebody regarding the homicides. This person is a female, age 21. And so let's get into it. She lived at some location in Moscow, Idaho during the incident. Her backyard abutted the 1122 King Road residence. She knew Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez, and Xana. She did not know Ethan. She was closest to Maddie and to Mogan and Gonzalez. Gonzalez was out of town most of the week, she said, but had decided to come back near the end of the week to go to the formal on Friday, some sorority formal on Friday, November the 11th. Okay, this is again confirmation. Kaylee wasn't living at the house. She was not living at 112 King Road residence. She was, for lack of a better word, lured back to the house by somebody who said, "Come with me to the party." And so Kaylee agreed to do so. This is important. If you believe Kaylee might have been lured back, she was the target and she was not even living there. She showed up and then got killed. So is it a coincidence? Bad timing for Kaylee. She hadn't been staying there for 3 weeks. Is it just super bad timing for Kaylee? Was she indeed, as the latest documents and narrative will be, hey, that person came in there for Maddie. Kaylee wasn't even supposed to be there. That surprised the killer, and so Kaylee got it bad. Or is it the other way around? Kaylee hadn't been staying there for 3 weeks. Somebody got her to come back to the house so they could finish her off, and that's why that house was attacked that night. Somebody online even sketchily and anonymously said, gee, that night was picked for a reason. Do we know why? Well, maybe it's because Kaylee was going to be there and she hadn't been there for weeks. Follow the logic. All right. Friday night, Gonsalves had asked her to go to the club, and which she did not. She did go out Saturday to a game celebration at 2:30 in the afternoon at the big such and such apartment. She left and went to the game at approximately 4:40 while Gonsalves and Mogan stayed at the party. All right. Saturday night, the night before the murders, she went to the Dirty Goat, a local bar. Gonsalves contacted her and wanted her to go to the corner club. So Kaylee is at the corner club, or at least before going to the corner club, wants this friend, this person acquaintance, to join them at the corner club. She met Gonsalves at the corner club at 11 p.m. So this person did go there. Gonsalves, Mogan, and a lot of other people were there. She had a small run-in with some individual at the corner club. This is going to be important, this name. She had a small run-in with somebody at the corner club. And so-and-so was kicked out of the bar around the same time or not long before. Now, I think this run-in is possibly with Jack Showalter. I think it's Jack Showalter. That's who I think it is. I think. She had a small run-in with a person, which may be Jack Showalter at the corner club. So-and-so, maybe not the same person as the person she had a run-in with, was also kicked out at the bar around the same time, not too long before. Mogan and Gonsalves left the corner club, and she stayed at the corner club until approximately 2 in the morning and arrived home at 2:30 in the morning. She was up until 3:30 in the morning and did not hear anything. Okay. It's just part of the narrative of what happened as we're piecing together who Maddie and who Kaylee were talking to and taking selfies with and asking to come join them at the bar. Jack Showalter's in that equation. Another individual is in that equation that doesn't know Maddie Mogan very well. He's just kind of a classmate. He's surprised that Maddie's okay with taking pictures with him because he hardly knows her. He starts grab-assing. He starts doing weird shit, spitting on girls and the thing. He's a little fucking out of control. He's drunk and he gets kicked out of the bar. Is that this person who gets kicked out of the bar? So pay attention to all the moving pieces. And I know you're like, well, where are you going, DA? Can you give me a fucking hint? Where are you going? I don't want to give you a hint. What I want you to understand is all of the alternative suspects that Hitler deemed to be ridiculous because the killer came from Pullman and was an incel and couldn't get laid. And we have no connection to him and any of the girls in the house or the house itself, have no idea why he would have picked it or why he would have picked that night. But all these other people who did weird shit that night, grab ass and fucking Maddie and getting kicked out of the bar, following the girls, and everybody said that, why the fuck did Jack Showalter follow the girls? That's totally weird. That's not normal for him to do that. Why was he following them? All these other people, ex-boyfriend who's jealous about the possibly this. Why would all of that shit out the fucking window? Incel from next door who can't get laid and there's no connection between him and his girls is the only thing that makes sense to most of you in America. Not you. If you're watching this channel, you don't think that way. But a lot of America bought it. And sure, at the end of the day, they may be right. Shit, I could be wrong. Maybe they're right. I don't think so. But maybe they're right. I'm willing to accept it. Are you willing to accept that you could be wrong? That's the big thing. Now, she spoke with, I think this is Eric, the Uber driver. So the redacted name, I think here is Eric. She spoke with Eric, the Uber driver, who told her he was pretty sure that he had taken Mogan and Gonsalves home that night. Eric drove a smaller gray sedan. That checks. Eric apparently drives a small sedan. Eric does drive for Uber from time to time. We are told that the girls got a ride from Eric home, and Eric says, I'm pretty sure I drove the girls home. All of that checks. So let's just say, check, this is Eric. Gonsalves' old room. Now, this is kind of interesting, and I don't know how to explain this without confusing the piss out of you. Gonsalves' old room is the room where Conodal is living in. God dang it, man. I hope you can follow this because it's important to me. At 3 floors of this house. Bottom floor, Bethany Funk and Ashlyn Couch's old room, I think, which is used as an office now. The main floor, the second floor where the sliding glass door comes in, is Dylan Mortenson's room and Xana Conodal's room, who happened to have Ethan Chapin, her boyfriend, over that night, and they were murdered in that room. Follow the logic so far. Upstairs, Maddie Mogan had a bedroom, and another room was where Kaylee Gonzalez's bedroom was, but she wasn't staying there. She was living in Coeur d'Alene. She was just there in town. But here's the fucking really, really confusing point. Somebody else lived in the room upstairs where Kaylee had been staying, and they had been living in that room upstairs. They moved out of the house, and Kaylee asked if she could take over that room. Kaylee's previous room was Xana Coronato's room. That's where Kaylee's room was. Kaylee was living at that house on the main floor. Are you following? Kaylee lived on the main floor, the sliding glass door. That's where Kaylee used to live in her bedroom. There's a point in this story where Dylan says that the murdered person on the second floor is Kaylee Gonzalez. She talks about Kaylee going up the stairs to the third floor and running back downstairs to the second floor, and that's where she thinks Kaylee was killed. Confusion comes along later when they find out that Kaylee was upstairs and that Kaylee's bedroom was upstairs. If you're confused, I'm confused as well. But understand, Kaylee's bedroom originally was Xana's bedroom. And there was indications that the officers were told it was Kaylee that was killed on the second floor where Kaylee's bedroom would have been. But it turned out that the upstairs roommate next to Maddie had moved out, and Kaylee had asked if she could take that room, and Kaylee had been living in that room. By the way, that room still had some items of personal effect from the previous person, the previous girl who moved out, and Kaylee moved in. So that room was a combination of the first girl's stuff and Kaylee's stuff. Why the fuck is that important, DA? We're getting there. It's going to take a while. You're going to have to stick with me on this channel. All right. So, are you following the logic? There's some confusion about whether or not Kaylee was on the second floor or the third floor, because maybe Kaylee used to live where Xana was at in that second floor bedroom. But we've covered that. Now, Gonsalves had recently moved into the room on the third floor after so-and-so said she was not moving back in. So this is what I just said. Somebody was living in that upstairs bedroom. She moved out of the bedroom, and she said she wasn't going to move back in. And Kaylee asked if she could move up to the upstairs bedroom. That was now Kaylee's room upstairs. It wasn't originally. It was Coronato's room originally. Gonsalves did not seem at all worried about a stalker or any other dangers. She thought Gonsalves would have said something if there was a real stalker. Gonsalves would have been scared if she had a stalker. Instead, Gonsalves was planning events for them all the time. So in other words, the rumors that Kaylee was terrified of a stalker wasn't true. She kind of joked about it a lot. She laughed it off. A lot of people didn't take Kaylee serious about her stalker, even though she told everyone about her stalker. That's an interesting part of this story. Now, her bedroom window looks out onto 1122 King Road Residence's backyard. She can usually hear anything going on in their backyard. Murphy, the dog at 1122 King Road Residence, usually barks a little bit, and she can generally hear it, which she didn't recall happening that night. Now, that's also super fucking weird. People who are giving eyewitness testimony said they heard nothing from the dog, which they thought was weird. Other people said they heard the dog and the dog was outside, which they thought that was fucking weird. People heard the dog inside the house, which they thought was super fucking weird. This dog is a traveling motherfucking time warping extra dimensional Sasquatch, I think. Because it can apparently portal through and be in the bedroom. It can also be outside. It can also be loose. It can also not be there at all. Murphy, I want to know your trick, man. Good shit. That dog, who, by the way, is not covered in any blood at all, while apparently maybe walking all around the crime scene of 4 murdered victims, in and out of the house, outside the house, moving away from the house at one point while here, maybe being picked up and put in a car, maybe being brought back to the house, maybe being put in the bedroom. That fucking magical ass dog who teleports around the universe never picks up any blood on him. I want to know that dog's trick. That's a good dog. Jack DeCour has that dog now, by the way. But I digress. That was a huge digression. Maybe I should put a thumbnail. I'm gonna put a picture of fucking Murphy on the thumbnail just for your shits and giggles. It'll be an inside joke if you ever made it to 43 minutes in this video. All right. Now, she had booked tickets recently. This person being interviewed had booked tickets with Gonsalves to go to Europe together approximately 3 weeks prior to the homicides. Holy shit. That's just a weird, interesting thing. So this girl knew Kaylee well enough that they were going to go to Europe together for a trip together before she moved to Texas. Gonsalves had recently sold, listen to this, Gonsalves had recently sold a white Subaru sedan for approximately $6,300 to a man using Facebook Marketplace. Gonsalves had just purchased a Range Rover the previous day. Gonsalves was making good money, but a Range Rover seemed expensive. Gonsalves was recently offering to buy drinks for friends quite often. Why the fuck is that important? In this investigation, Moscow Police Department were asking who Kaylee was seeing/sleeping with. One of the guys they're looking into, they wanted to know how much money he made. At one point in the investigation, they're asking for the salaries of professors on campus or people who work on the University of Idaho. Was Kaylee sleeping with somebody on campus? Was that one of the people she was sleeping with? And they want to know, they want to compare, how much money does that person make? I want the salaries of everybody who works at the campus. Maybe you guys missed it. It's a little easy thing to miss, but that investigation was poking into who was Kaylee sleeping with and how much money did he make? Why the fuck do you care how much money a guy that Kaylee's sleeping with makes, or that she might have relationships with? Why do you give a shit how much the guy makes? Well, because Kaylee just bought a really expensive car and Kaylee is buying drinks for everybody around house. All of a sudden, Kaylee's got a fucking sugar daddy is what it looks like to me. Guess what that is? Fucking questions. Who's sleeping with Kaylee? Who's the sugar daddy? We probably want to know. Most of you don't want to know. It's an incel from Pullman. I get it. We'll move on. It's fucking, who gives a shit? So she's sleeping with a rich guy. Who cares? Oh, by the way, Dylan at one point says, I think I might know who the fucking Dylan. During the Idaho early reports, the first video I did, part 1, Dylan says, I think I might know who the murderer is, but I didn't want to say his name because it would ruin his reputation. Oh, you mean somebody high up somewhere that makes a lot of money and police officers want to know how much money does that person make? Could that be the same person? Where did Kaylee all of a sudden get all this money? Does she have a sugar daddy? Is she sleeping with somebody who's important and has a lot of money? Who the fuck is she sleeping with? You know what? It doesn't matter. It's an incel from Pullman who just fucking got obsessed with some little chick at a fucking Mad Greek restaurant and had to kill 4 women. Okay, let's just stop talking about who Kaylee was seeing and who her sugar daddy is. I get it. I'll move on. Fuck. Let's go take the magical dog for a ride like freaking Narnia and shit or whatever. I don't know. Fuck. It's not Narnia. What's the flying dog one? Shit. I'm losing it. Shit. You know what I'm talking about? The flying dog, the big flappy ears. Fuck, I digress. Anyways, that's what I see now when I see Murphy. That dog is fucking flying through fucking with his giant ears and we're gonna da da da. All right, sorry, I digress. That was a huge digression. All right. I don't even know where that went. All right. Gonsalves has had an ex-boyfriend. Oh no, let's go back one more step. Okay. So she's spreading money all over town. Gonsalves had planned to move to Texas and had a temporary male roommate arranged down there. That company in Texas might have been one fucking hell of a company, and they must have provided Kaylee with one hell of an advance if she's buying a really expensive car that everyone who knows her is like, how the fuck did you afford that car, and why are you buying everybody drinks around town? Who's she working for? Where did she get that kind of money? Gonsalves had an ex-boyfriend, somebody who is such and such's neighbor. I think we're talking about Jack DeCour again. Ex-boyfriend, who's a neighbor. Gonsalves and Jack DeCour, I'm just going to call it, dated for approximately 6 years. That we know is true. That tracks. Gonsalves and DeCour dated all summer while Gonsalves was up in Moscow working. Gonsalves and DeCour were not together, but were good friends. Gonsalves and DeCour shared a dog, Murphy, together. The fucking magical flying, goddamn park, carpet riding, rug munching, whatever the fuck. What is that dog with the flying? Da, da, da. I can't get it out of my head. Mogan had a boyfriend. Is that Scherger? I can't remember. In Boise, who was friends with a lot of so-and-so's friends who had graduated. Gonsalves stayed in her old room. Gonsalves stayed in her old room while she was living in Moscow all summer. What was her old room? Xana Kernodle's room was her old room. Gonsalves stayed in her old room while she was living in Moscow all summer. Gonsalves only had one roommate during the summer, and that was somebody that's been redacted. Gonsalves worked for such and such a company and ended up getting a full-time offer starting in February. So whatever company she's working for, she had a full-time offer on the table. She was going to start in February. She was going to leave Jack DeCour along with their magical flying carpet riding fucking dog and go to fucking Dallas. She does not think Gonsalves went out much during the summer. She didn't go out much during the summer. Who's she sleeping with? Like everybody in town, it seems like, but she didn't go out much. I don't want to victim shame Kaylee. I'm just saying that of all the girls, a lot of people say she had a lot of guy friends. and everybody wants to know everything about who's Kaylee's guy friends are, how much money they make. I think they find that important. Maybe I'm just the asshole. Now, Gonzalez stayed in her old room when she was in Moscow. Okay, we got that. She does not think that Gonzalez went out much during the summer. I still can't take that seriously. And so-and-so had just graduated and stayed in Moscow for the summer. All right. Was that Decour? I don't know. She did not think that so-and-so had anything to do with the incident. Now, that name, I think, is Jack Showalter. Jack Showalter was seen with the girls at the grub truck, and I think that's what they're talking about right here. She did not think, I'm going to call it for the moment, that I think they're saying, she did not think, this person interviewed did not think that Jack Showalter had anything to do with the incident. But it was a question. It was a fucking question they asked. So, so-and-so, she, I think, showed a video from the party earlier in the game day, which showed what Showalter, I'm saying, I think, was wearing, which appeared to be the same thing the person was wearing from the grub truck video. We know Showalter was at the grub truck video. We know he was there. It looks like this person has a video of Showalter from that night showing his clothes, confirming that, yeah, that's Showalter with the girls at the party. This person remembers Gonsalves and Mogan saying that they were going to John's Alley, and that I think Jack Showalter was going to go with them. A lot of people said that was fucking weird. They don't know why Jack Showalter was going with the girls to John's Alley. He wasn't even a very close friend, and he was a little weird, and he was prone to fights, and he was a violent individual, and he liked to kill animals, and all kinds of weird shit. But you know what? Fucking Brian Koberger is an incel, and might have gone to the Greek Road or fucking Mad Greek restaurant and been incest with Maddie, and that makes more sense. Okay. So this person, and I think it's Showalter, was not good friends with Gonsalves and Mogan. He was not good friends, but Mogan is kind of friends with a lot of people involved with the Greek houses. Showalter, I believe, is in the same pledge class year as so-and-so, Gonsalves, and Mogan, and has a lot of their classes. There's been a lot of their classes. So he knows the girls, but not necessarily a good friend. He just knows all the girls. He's in the same circles. He's got some of the same classes, so on, so on, so on. This person showed a screenshot of a group of messages obtained by a shit ton of redacted names. The author of the message seemed to know a lot of information regarding the homicide. God dang it, man. Do I not want to know who the hell has a lot of information about the homicides and every name's redacted so we can't? I bet you Brian Koberger's not on the fucking list. Bet you he's not on the list, but let's just pretend that somebody knows a lot of information about the homicides and it's not important for us in America to know who those people might be. So this person had read some creepy comments on YouTube. You know, that fucking shit's not important either. If somebody knows a lot about the murders and are making creepy shots, that's probably not fucking important for America to know. It's an incel from Pullman, Washington. That's all you need to know. But she had some creepy comments on YouTube and obtained screenshots of some of them, had screenshots. I think people have shown those around the internet. We didn't think they were real, but fucking the officers are saying, well, we've seen the screenshots of these weird things. And she turned over a flash drive with some of those comments. So the officers know there were some people that knew a lot about the murders. Some people knew a lot about the murders and were sending creepy fucking messages and comments on YouTube. And this girl got screenshots. Did we in America get to see it? Did we get to question it? Fuck no. Incel who can't get laid from Pullman is where you're going with this. You don't need to know about anything else. People often use the sliding glass door as the main entrance for the house. She does not think it was usually locked. All right. Now, that puts us at about 52 minutes. I am a long ways away from finishing what I've already prepared for today. So that's where we're going to put a bow on that. I'm going to get myself remember, never-ending story. Fuck yes! Fucking nailed it. Never-ending story with the flying dog. What the fuck was his name? Okay, now I'm lost again. Never-ending story. I'm going to put that effing dog on this thumbnail, and I hope you appreciate it. Have a great day. Stick with me. It's going to get interesting.